and welcome to my office in my house, and I'm going to talk to you today give a little presentation on entrepreneurial creativity, especially creating a culture of innovation, creativity and failure within an organisation. So first of all, three factors that Christensen and Overdorf talk about in their journal article in the Harvard Business Review is factors that affect an organisation, or factors that affect what an organisation can not and can do. So what they can and cannot do, what are the factors? And they say that resources, so people, things, tangible, intangible, what are their resources? What are their processes that maybe these people and things go through in order to achieve a task? And then what are their values? What are their underlying assumptions and culture? And yes. So I am going to explore these three things and how they might relate to creating a culture of innovation and creativity, and then also looking at failure and how that fits into it as well. So first of all, starting off with the people within an organisation and within teams within that organisation. The idea of self-differentiation has come from the world of psychology. Psychologists, people like David Schnarch, who's a well-renowned psychologist in the US, and he explores the idea of self-differentiation and self-validation in terms of family and intimate relationships. But I want to talk about it in relation to creativity and business and innovation and working within an organisation. So people with with low differentiation rely on other people for their validation. Therefore they're kind of less likely to explore, to speak up about an idea that they're not quite sure about, in case someone else might kind of shoot it down or something. Maybe they've been hurt by that in the past. But they're seeking their validation from other people. So if they put an idea out there and it's kind of not liked, then they'll be less likely to share again. At the other end of the scale, there's people that will so not necessarily not share their ideas, but they'll be the people that are cutting other ideas down, cutting other people down in order to make their idea the better idea, so that they can feel better about themselves. So this discussing of an idea turns into a power game, which is definitely not what you want to be creative and innovative. You really want to be exploring each other's ideas and building on each other's ideas. And that's what, when you take Dr. Schnarch's view of differentiation, you kind of put it into an organisational sense. That's where where a self-differentiated person is not afraid to share some ideas. They're open to listen to other people's ideas and explore those and be excited about those, excited for the other person, and build on those ideas together, as a group, and not kind of storm off if their idea isn't the one that's taken up. So it's good to have differing ideas and to know that having differing ideas is actually a really good thing. But to be self-differentiated about it, to not be getting your validation from whether your ideas are accepted or not. There's kind of a whole organisational culture that goes into that as well, which we'll touch on in a minute. So the other thing is curiosity. People need to have a very keen curiosity of how things work, how can they be improved in order to create new ideas. Incubators. So there's some little chickens there that have obviously just hatched out of some eggs. So incubators is the idea that giving a creative or innovative idea the best possible chance of succeeding or moving on, or so working in teams, knowledge sharing, and cross-functional teams, which we'll touch on. So first of all, working in teams and knowledge sharing. So people need to be, or there needs to be a culture of sharing openly and freely, that knowledge is not something that you keep to yourself to kind of keep power and authority over the knowledge, but actually to share it within your team and within other teams, so that it can be used to the best possible ways in, again, that incubator, that incubation picture. So I've worked in organisations where knowledge and information is a very well kept secret, and people keep it very close to themselves. Maybe it comes back to that self-differentiation thing as well. You want to keep the knowledge close to you so that that other people don't have some kind of power and you have power over other people. You want to create a culture that people are sharing their knowledge within, sharing it within the kind of incubator. So different teams working together as well. Moving away from a silo, team silos, where kind of issues or ideas or whatever are thrown over the fence for the next layer to work out, and then if there's an issue with it, they kind of throw it back, but you throw it back and you hope it doesn't come back again. But actually working together to explore and create new ideas. So again, cross-functional teams, where a team is not just based on what their function is. So I have a background in IT and have worked in kind of support organisations, where you have your silos of teams. Both, you have your help desk and your level 2 support and your level 3 support, and then within those teams you have different functional areas, networking and systems and applications and that kind of stuff, where you don't talk to the other teams, you just do your job, and you're placed in a team where everyone has the same level of experience, the same knowledge, and the same skills, and you're supposed to work together to kind of, complete these tasks. Where actually, in that, people, because they're all the same experience and the same knowledge and the same skill set, there's not really areas for exploring new ideas and bouncing ideas off other people. Someone in the networking team can't talk to someone in the apps team about, what if we did it this way? Or what if we changed this? And, we could do that, I guess. That would work here and it would work there. But, when you're in this team over here, you have nothing to do with a different team, and it makes things very difficult for innovation and creativity. Moving on from teams to focusing on the people. This is kind of probably old hat for a lot of people. The idea of design thinking, empathy for the customers, and fulfilling a need. So seeing a need and fulfilling that need, building solutions and being innovative and creative about fulfilling different needs. An organisation needs to have the freedom to try things. You know, people within the organisation, teams, they need the freedom from wherever to say, yep, you try something and see what you can learn from it. And within that, the option to fail. Failure should always be an option. We fail at things, and failure, if we learn something from it, it's not a bad thing. We can learn from something failing. So yeah, it's the idea that we need to give something every possibility to succeed can actually scare people off even giving it a go, giving something a try. Oh, I don't know what that if this will work or not, so I won't bother trying, because where that kills creativity and innovation. You can't it makes things really difficult to try something new when there's the only option is success. And then also organisations have a long memory when it comes to failure. People within organisations remember a long time, and kind of the underlying culture can really make that really poisonous for creativity and innovation within that organisation. If an organisation, as an organisation, remembers someone's failure for a really long time, remembers it for it being a failure, not that it's what it learnt out of it. Minimum viable product is a way that we can fail fast and cheaply. So starting off small with a small idea, what is the minimum that I can do in order to see if this thing will work, and then learn, adjust and learn, and remembering as well that customers aren't always, or often aren't, aware of all you have in mind in the big picture. When you kind of set out to do something, they know what you're offering at that time. So if what you're offering is this, and you get people buying that, and you seek feedback, you see what people are buying, see what their buying habits are, and go feedback. You might kind of be thinking your big plan is to go this direction, but actually what the customers want is this direction. Which, if you found that after building all of this and they wanted this, and there's kind of this little overlap in the middle, then you've got to start from scratch again to kind of build this thing. So Eric Ries, in his book, talks in the Lean Startup, talks about minimum viable product, and that could even be just a buy now button on a website. You might not have all the processes and everything in place in order to sell that product or service, but the idea is to put it out there, see who buys it, if anyone buys it. Maybe 100 people might buy it, and you learn a whole heap of stuff from that, but maybe you can't supply 100 people, so they might have to be disappointed at this time, but in the future you've kind of learnt from that minimum viable product in order to create something new. You're kind of learning from that experience. So all these things, kind of minimum viable product, testing, failing, learning, trying things, it all needs to come out of a testing of a hypothesis. Something that kind of science has done since science was discovered, is is this idea of testing an hypothesis and not being afraid if your hypothesis fails, not kind of, fudging some numbers or something if your hypothesis fails, but actually the idea, the desire is to test your hypothesis. So what is your hypothesis? What are some of the thoughts that are going behind what you're wanting to create? And then what is the least cost, the easiest way that we can go about testing that hypothesis? Is that creating a minimum viable product? Is it doing some interviews? Is it some other way? But what is the way that we can test our hypothesis? Pivot. Of course, if your hypothesis is incorrect or it's off a little bit, you always need to have the freedom to change course, to not kind of be so grounded in your idea and what your idea is that you're happy to and willing to pivot and change direction. If your tests and your feedback show that actually you need to be heading this way, then you need to make that decision to pivot. Eric Ries, in his book, again, he tells the story of an electric bike manufacturer in India, a little startup, and he made electric bikes, and that was his big idea, to make electric bikes for India. Had all these reasons as to why he wanted to do that, but launched the electric bike and didn't actually get many sales at all. It was probably a bit of a flop. But he kind of realised that actually a lot of people were buying just the motors for these bikes, and he then did some research as to why they were just buying the motors, and realised it was farmers buying the motors for pumps, for water pumps. And so he pivoted. He had to pivot, or at least make a decision. Do I stay with my big ideas of electric bikes because I really want to do that, or do I change direction, keep my electric motor, but actually start to build pumps? Quickly, I just want to touch on a case study for INTUIT, which is a large tech company in the US who make tax and accounting software. So David Kirkpatrick has a journal article called "Throw It at the Wall and See If It Sticks." And he talks a lot about how INTUIT have created a culture of innovation, of trying things, of creativity. They have a full-time developer of new ideas who is also a psychologist. His name's Anthony Creed, and he says if someone has an idea, don't stomp on it. So that kind of harks back to what I was saying before, self-differentiation. Let people have a go, create a culture where you're kind of building on each other's ideas. Some of the things that INTUIT do, they have weekly free association sessions where they get together at their kind of respective offices and just throw out ideas and build on those ideas together. Developers within the company are free to have new ideas and explore them. They have Follow Me Homes, which is kind of a walk a mile immersion, or there's kind of other ways that are explained in different articles. But going with someone, having an interview with them, seeing how they use the software, and then seeing how they can build on it. See what ideas are out there, see what they have. They have also changed their release cycles. INTUIT used to have a year-long release cycle. So in order to have something ready for it for the yearly release, it had to be thought about months and months in advance, and then testing and building and testing and then have this big hard launch that is kind of not knowing for sure whether all the things that you put in there would actually meld with the customers out there. They changed to having a weekly release, so a developer can write a new bit of software, put it into their package, test it in a few different ways, and then release it in the weekly release. So it's a continuous integration of their ideas and their that's how they're moving forward. That's how they're being creative, creating a culture that can grow and change and be innovative. So that's all I have, just a summary. Teams, focus on the people. Share knowledge, don't hold on to it. Create a culture that is about sharing knowledge, sharing experiences with self-differentiated, self-validated people. Give the freedom to try, to fail early, to learn and to pivot, and then test your hypothesis. Not just randomly failing because you want to, but actually have an hypothesis and test that hypothesis. Thank you very much for listening.